Tokenization is transforming how financial institutions and everyday retail customers transact with each other, how value can move seamlessly across the world in seconds, and how this is going to better prepare us for the future ahead. I want to explain today what tokenization is, how you're going to be able to use it going forward to better your life, and how Ripple and XRP are going to be at the heart and center of this financial revolution. It's going to be a great educational video, guys. Let's just jump right in here. This is a video from the IMF. What is tokenization and programmable money useful? Why is it? Let's play it.
Money has come a long way since the first uses of shells or coins millennia ago. Today, it may even be considered our most used technology, as most people are using money that is recorded digitally. So what's the next step in this evolutionary story? Let's talk about tokenization, or how we turn our pocketbooks into something that's programmable. Why would we need programmable money? We use money to consume or save, and owning assets is a common way to save. Tokens can make it faster and cheaper to buy, own, and sell assets. Say that I want to buy a corporate stock or bond. Today, there would be a long chain of middlemen between me and that company. Think, for instance, of a clearinghouse, an independent bridge between the buyer and seller of an asset. It waits to receive the buyer's payment and the seller's asset, and then exchanges them, avoiding the risk either side fails to deliver. But waiting costs time, and time is money in finance. Another example is registrar, institutions that transfer a company's interest in dividend payments to the asset owner. A tokenized market can automate their function. Tokenization and make financial markets faster and cheaper through programs that automate or reduce the role of intermediaries. Researchers who've recently studied tokenized markets found significant cost saving. Tokenization's promise is visible in the numbers, but efficiencies from new technologies often come with new risks. Automated trading has already led to sudden market plunges known as flash crashes. With their instantly executed trading, tokenized markets can be more volatile. Also, tokenization allows chains of programs to be written on top of each other. In a crisis, these could interact adversely, like falling dominoes. Another risk is that many new markets could emerge, and if their tokens don't speak to each other, known as interoperability, markets could fragment and fail to deliver faster and cheaper trading. That means specific policies may be needed for tokenization to really deliver on its promise while limiting the risks. Indeed, governments have rarely been content to stay on the sidelines during important evolutions of money. So if history is any guide, they may take a more active role in the future of tokenization.
And we are already seeing that, right? And when you talk about the interoperability between systems, fragmented systems, what is the best bridge asset on the planet right now that can help interconnect any system going from whatever currency to whatever other currency or crypto or tokenized asset? That, of course, is XRP. And here's Brad Garlinghouse on stage talking about just that. Let me play this for you.
I mean, I'll throw out two. I mean, what one Ripple is interested in, and we think a lot about, because we are very focused on the enterprise and kind of institutional side, the ability to tokenize real world assets and make them more accessible, more tradable. I think that is good for the global economy. I think it's good for consumers. I think it's good for businesses. I think it's good for institutions. And so I view that as an inevitability. And the question is, how quickly, which jurisdictions, where does it happen the most quickly? I very much am a believer. And, again, you hear all kinds of crazy ideas about like, what about tokenizing this? And it's stuff I've never thought of that I'm like, oh, yeah, I could see why that might make sense to a particular investor class or what have you.
I think there's avenues to tokenize things that we've never even thought of. And now when we're talking about tokenization and how the XRP ledger is going to play a role here, one of the companies that is helping shape tokenization on the XRP ledger is Axelar, with 55 plus blockchains interconnected. The Axelar network will provide the interoperability bridge between the XRP ledger mainnet and the XRP ledger EVM sidechain, as well as 55 other chains. And so we talk about interconnectivity. This is one of the vital tools and pieces. And so the XRPL EVM sidechain, just to give you some more context and information about what this is an advanced interoperability upgrade for the XRP ledger, enabling full Ethereum smart contract functionality and bridging to the XRP ledger ecosystem to dozens of other blockchains. The biggest use cases revolve around DeFi, institutional finance, and real-world asset tokenization, accelerating XRP's adoption and utility across markets. One of the biggest problems for development on the XRP XRP ledger in the past has been not having smart contract functionality. And this will enable new development and new builders. The reason that is important is because you need liquidity. You also need people building, and that is going to allow more XRP and RLUSD and whatever else to be used inside of each one of those protocols. So if you have one project building, you're only going to need so much. But if you have 100 or 1,000 or 10,000 developments happening, you can see how more and more XRP would be needed. And that's really what we're trying to get to here, ladies and gentlemen. So how the EVM sidechain works for the people that want to kind of geek out on this, the XRPL EVM sidechain is a Cosmos SDK-based blockchain that provides full EVM compatibility. So developers can deploy Solidity smart contracts, use MetaMask, and integrate their Ethereum dApps with the XRPL's fast, low-cost network. XRP serves as the native gas token, and fees are ultra low with 3.5-second block times and efficient proof of authority consensus. Interoperability is supercharged via the Axelar bridge, which ensures a decentralized one-to-one connection of XRP to the XRPL mainnet and the EVM sidechain, as well as seamless cross-chain transfers between the XRPL EVM and 55 other blockchains, including Cosmos, Ethereum, Solana, and so much more. Basically, the most important networks in blockchain today. The sidechain permits developers to interact using Ethereum, JSON, RPC standards, and tools, facilitating simple migration and existing dApps on the EVM sidechains. Validators on both the XRPL and EVM sidechains coordinate security, and Axelar's cross-chain protocol guarantees asset movement and programmability. And so the biggest use cases for tokenization that we are seeing currently today, and remember, these can change over time as the needs for people change, but you have tokenized securities. Banks and financial institutions issue digital bonds, treasuries, and stocks on the XRP ledger. The bond market globally is about 130 trillion. The stock market here in the United States is somewhere about 60 trillion. And of course, when we're talking about the treasury market is roughly about 28.6 trillion here in the US. So we can see that this is a massive problem that needs to be solved. And the XRP ledger, I believe, will play a very big role in all this. You also have firms that are looking to tokenize real estate, private equity, infrastructure, and funds to unlock liquidity to enable fractional investing and accelerating settlement. You also have DeFi applications like borrowing, lending, and staking, and DEX and margin lending platforms use tokenized assets as collateral. You also have payment innovations such as stablecoins, institutional settlement assets, and programmable money that can be tokenized for instant low-cost transfers. NFTs and digital goods, artists, brands, and content creators issue NFTs and collectibles leveraging XRP ledger's efficiency. And of course, CBDCs, whether you love them or you hate them, they are being developed around the world, and they are going to be a reality in our everyday use of money going forward. The XRP ledger offers compliant infrastructure for central banks to issue digital currencies, integrate identity KYC protections, and program automated regulatory features. So you can see why the XRP ledger is poised for mass adoption here in the tokenized area. All right, let's get here. I have more clips and more information I want to show you. I hope you're learning. I hope you're growing. If you get any value, guys, let me know down below, or you can like the video. I'd really appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you very much for having us here, having me here. Super excited to talk about the probably more or most popular topic in crypto this year. And look, so
this is Marcus Infinger from Ripple, excuse me.
How am I involved with tokenization? I oversee basically with Ripple XR contributions to the XRP ledger, which is an open source blockchain. And tokenization of real world assets has been definitely one of the key areas for us in terms of like building more native primitives to allow for compliant institutional grade tokenization, signing partnerships around this. And so we're seeing a lot of stablecoins, obviously, already as a form of financial instrument represented on the XRP ledger, and are also seeing a couple of projects around real estate, carbon markets. And now we're really expecting to see this to grow vastly in terms of scope, debt assets, securities, private equity, and so forth. And I would say, like, in terms of like a year ago and now, the big difference is it felt like engaging particularly with TradFi in the beginning, maybe more than a year ago, was mostly about like ticking an innovation box and running through some theoretical pilots. And now the conversations are really becoming real and tangible and executable. And so I would say it's fair to say that there's a lot that's going to be happening in terms of like blockchain technology, blockchain related companies and TradFi working together to really move the needle.
Right.
Basically, you have the infrastructure currently being built out by a lot of players. And what's really important here is to pay attention, not just what's happening in our own backyard here, maybe in the United States, but globally here as people from all around the world watch this channel. Something that's really kind of piqued my interest here is tokenized real estate and what's happening in the UAE. Let me just show you a little bit about what they're talking about here.
The first asset class that we would like
like to address is real estate. There's a lot of you have been around Doha in the past 2 days. There's a lot of real estate oversupply in the market, but it also solves a significant problem where there's not enough access into this asset class. If you look at a lot of the towers in West Bay or in Lusail or in any other area in Qatar, a lot of the towers are owned by 1 or 2, maximum 3 landlords. And, these are significant ticket sizes. You're talking about a minimum of $500 million upwards. So, tokenizing a tower or 2, I think would do great good for the economy and, a lot more access and liquidity to the real estate market. But that's one asset class. I'd like to see as well, Islamic financial products securitized through our corporate registration, bond issuances securitized, perhaps energy infrastructure in the near future. But what I'm saying is, through our laboratory, I would say, which is our corporate registration, we can experiment without spreading the risk all over the rest of the economy. It'll be a contained environment. If anything goes wrong, then that would be contained within the Qatar Financial Center environment and the risk would be managed efficiently. So a lot of assets, I think. But we're going to start with real estate, and then we're going to start with financial products as well.
Do you see this as a way to attract foreign investment? You mentioned especially real estate, potentially.
Well, foreign direct investment is one of our objectives. I think what we'd want to see is some local investments in these asset classes to start with. But I think it will definitely give access to a bigger pool of foreign investors tapping into our economy. And then hopefully you'd have some cross-border transactions as well. On harmonization, I think that's a great idea. I think if there was any harmonization to happen within the digital asset space, the best bet is that it would happen between financial centers because we're a lot more efficient and swift in terms of amending regulations. I mean, it takes us less than 3 months to set up a financial services regulation and then get public consultation on it and then enact it. So we're pretty swift, and I think the same applies in DIFC and ADGM. So I think between those 3 financial centers, if we can come to a common arrangement where, digital assets and certain financial services products can passport into each other, I think that could definitely be achieved rather than a larger passporting mechanism for the entire GCC, which could happen, but I think we're still far away from that.
So you can see that you need to have countries working together here, jurisdictions, right? When you sell something via on blockchain, right? On the blockchain, how does that get updated and transacted in the real world? And these have been one of the most pain points for the growth of tokenization here around the world. And as you can see here, real estate, financial services, supply chain commodities, art, collectibles, and media, healthcare, there's just to name a few other ones here. If you're interested in tracking real world assets here on the XRP ledger, you can go to realworldassets.xyz. Obviously, I've been sitting here for a long time and they're trying to get me to sign up, but here is, and you can go view analytics here. You go to the XRP ledger, and this is where you're going to be able to pull up what's happening currently on the XRP ledger, how much value is being tokenized, where that value is. I guess they've gotten better at the security. They want me to sign up here. But as you can see here is RLUSD, Vert, Open Eden. So this is all of the companies that are working on tokenization on the XRP ledger. And as you can see that we are just now starting here, just to give you some idea of how much money has actually been tokenized on the XRP ledger in general. It is so minuscule here. I've shown this before in a bunch of videos, and I'm sorry if you're seeing this again, but this is really kind of helping to set an understanding of how far we still need to go here. Here's the asset classes. You got real estate, bonds, US treasuries, commodities, and real world assets. Here is how much value has been tokenized already. Here is the total addressable market size. And here is a percentage of how much work we've already done to bring these from the real world to tokenized form. And as you can see, when we're talking about 20 billion out of 300 trillion, we haven't even made a dent. 2 billion in bonds out of 130 trillion, 1 billion in US treasuries out of 34 trillion, 1 billion in commodities out of 13 trillion. And of course, gold, I think, is over 20 trillion now, but just to give you some understanding. And then real world assets, you only have 24 billion out of over 1 quadrillion. We haven't even reached a quarter or 0.5% or 1% of tokenized value already on the ledger. Now, how is XRP Ledger's value going to work with tokenization? Well, Jake Claver does do a good job breaking this down. Let's go ahead and check in with Jake.
How will XRP benefit from asset tokenization on the XRPL? So most of the real world tokenization for the XRPL isn't going to happen on the mainnet. The EVM sidechain, according to Ripple, is going to go live at the end of this month. It's in beta right now. Once there's large amounts of assets tokenized, the trading volume settling through XRP is actually what will drive the price higher. Just tokenizing assets doesn't do anything. It's just value sitting there unless people are actually trading it back and forth. And that's why they're going after Swift. Swift does 5 trillion a day in volume. The FX market does 6-point-something trillion a day in volume. The back end of the stock market is 5 to 600 billion a day in volume. So the volume of transactions is actually what's going to drive XRP's price higher for settling those transactions and sustain the price at those levels. The tokenization of the assets themselves is not actually going to do much.
So there's really not a ton of value in bringing the assets on chain. It's when those assets are transacted on chain and you're using XRP to move that value, that's where the value will come. And if you're wondering what the World Economic Forum and some of these larger institutions are saying, as you can see here in a thing that they put together on tokenized assets, you can see right here. And here it says several firms have already taken steps to tokenize PE investments. Recently, RM Equity Partners launched the world's first combined PE and debt tokenized fund valued at $1 billion on the XRP ledger. And there's a lot of testing going on the XRP ledger, and you can see the World Economic Forum and the BIS have highlighted the XRP ledger, especially for tokenization. And of course, you know that large financial institutions are finding ways to enable tokenization in their own ecosystems and infrastructure to help them, say a bank, right, stay important, keep their customers happy. And part of this is going to be the evolution of this technology and banks adopting it. I do think the banks that don't adopt this technology, I don't think will be serious banks. I don't think they will still be around in 10 or 20 years. I think really we are on the gold rush part of this evolvement of the ecosystem. And I think there's a lot of really incredible things to come here. All right, guys, listen, I'll leave it there. I hope you learned something about tokenization, how it works on the XRP ledger, where value will come from. I really appreciate you spending this time with me. If you got any value, you can leave a comment down below. You can like the video and you can send it to somebody that you think would also get value from this content. I really appreciate you. I'm Crypto Sensei. I'll see you next time. Aloha.